superwildejellyfish here. First album review in 7 months, huh? Here's to 7 more. Today I'm going to be looking at the third studio album from post-punk outfit Shame. Shame is a British rock band that formed in 2014 and have been releasing music since 2016. The way I found Shame was through a genre that has been in the centre of my life recently, and that is the revival of British post-punk. Back in the 70s, this scene was dominated by bands like Joy Division, The Cure, Sex Pistols, Bauhaus. It was an interesting time to be a fan of this one-of-a-kind genre. Nowadays, it's not only staggering that there's such a variety of British acts that fall under this umbrella, but the genre is also bringing the most exciting and experimental music to listeners worldwide. You have Squid releasing an 8+ minute powerhouse of a debut album single, Black Midi dropping Hellfire, one of the most deranged and creative trips into hell ever conceived, Black Country New Road inviting listeners to a soul-wrenching yet beautiful work of art, and there are many other bands I could mention too, including the subject of today's video, Shame. Unlike bands I've been following from the start like Black Midi and BCNR, I got onto the Shame train pretty late, hearing their sophomore effort Drunk Tank Pink a year after its initial release, and finally hearing their debut as of a few days ago. Their debut in question is the 2018 album Songs of Praise, a 10-track mix of indie rock and post-punk. Out of all of Shame's albums, Songs of Praise is by far their weakest project. It features a lot less of the punch and experimentation that future projects would lean into, and a few of the tracks feel like they drag on for a bit too long, but the album still offers a lot of fun, wit, and charm for the listener to chew on. I'd say if you haven't heard this album yet, it's worth a look. I won't say it will blow your socks off, and I'd personally recommend most people interested in Shame to start with the album that I'm just about to cover, but it's still got some fantastic tracks to boot, and it ain't a bad start either. Favourite tracks are Concrete, One Rizzler, The Lick, Gold Hole, and Lampoon. Now this is more fucking like it. Drunk Tank Pink is everything a sophomore should be. Bigger, punchier, and improves any issues its prior release fell into. None of the songs drag, the lyricism is rich and vibrant, and the sound throughout is incredible. I remember when first listening to Alphabet how blown away I was by the band's display of noisy, punky instrumentation and vocal delivery, and I ended up replaying Alphabet multiple times before diving into the rest of the project. This isn't to say that the rest of the album didn't meet Alphabet's highs, because some even surpassed them. Water in the Well and Snow Day are brilliant examples of such. Water being a fun, bouncy, and extremely memorable highlight, while Snow Day is easily a top 5 contender as an all-time best Shame track, featuring some of the most beautifully put together sounds and lyrics on the record, delving into themes of love and deep introspection. Great Dog is definitely worth mentioning too, which is one of the angriest tracks on the record that's hard not to sit still to whenever it comes on. Station Wagon is also up there as one of the best closers ever put together. It's a mesmerizing, gorgeous, and otherworldly experience, especially in its final 4-minute outro that breezes by like nothing. I used to rate Drunk Tank Pink a 9 out of 10, but I feel I've sobered up to any issues I've had with it before. Favourite tracks are Alphabet, Water in the Well, Snow Day, Great Dog, and Station Wagon. So, after 2 highly acclaimed albums, we reached Food for Worms. Unlike another album that released on Friday the 24th, 2023, the rollout for Shame's third studio album was pretty top-notch. 2 singles separated by a few months, and 1 final single releasing a few days before the release of the album. I only listened to the first 2 myself, and I found them both to be pretty exciting teasers, making clear this new record would have the band approaching songs in a more mature manner, and that instead of making Drunk Tank Pink 2.0, we'd be getting a whole new sound from the post-punk outfit. The album opens with Fingers of Steel, the first song teased through the album's rollout. An early indicator for the album's change of sound is the opening piano notes, a massive departure from Dust on Trial and Alphabet's wailing guitars. It then leads into a wonderful collage of guitars, drums, soothing backup vocals, and the same piano keeping everything in time. On the Bandcamp description for Food for Worms, lead vocalist Charlie Steen states that Fingers of Steel is about helping a mate and the frustrations that come with it. It's coming to terms with the fact that people can't be who you want them to be, and sometimes there isn't anything you can do to help. It's their own thing that they have to work out for themselves, and you have to accept that. I find that Charlie's vocal performance and the band's instrumentation around the track perfectly captures the melancholy subject matter, and the grand feel of the track heavily bolsters the listening experience. Following Fingers of Steel was the second song teased through the album's rollout, and that's the electrifying 6-pack. Out of all of the singles teased, this was easily my favourite, and it's by far the most explosive song on the track listing. The drums sound dirty, pummeling away as the warped guitars drive the song along, and Charlie theatrically belts out lyrics tearing down illusions of grandeur. Lyrically, it's by far one of the most intriguing songs Shame has written, as various descriptions of too good to be true deceptions are described. One of my favourite examples of this being bridge before the instrumental outro is a calm before the storm moment, a momentary pause of introspection that then tears itself away as the calmness shifts into building intensity that stays suspended for a few seconds before sucker punching the listener with a noisy outro to close on. Six Pack is a new all-time favourite of mine from Shame's discography, and while the rest of the album deviating from the sound could be seen as a negative, I find that Six Pack's impact is strengthened as the one standout punch of the record. Yankees slows things way the fuck down with an intro that sounds almost the Microphones-esque, both lyrically and sonically. The track picks up in speed as the drums introduce themselves, changing the song up from a singer-songwriter type track to a typical post-punk outing. The lyrics are sung by a narrator, detailing the frustrations they have towards their lover as words help and hurt, moods fluctuate, and tensions are clearly present. Out of all of the tracks here, I find Yankees to be the least memorable of the lot, as it blends into the sequencing of the record like a blip. It's a good song, don't get it twisted, it's fun to follow along and instrumentally it's pleasant on the ears, but as the first song that highlights the record's switch from Shame's brand of post-punk to their take on a more indie, art rock inspired sound with post-punk elements, I wish it could have invested me more like the previous tracks. Alibis picks the record up with an angry and sinister type sound, as the lyrics talk of a supposed narrator of the track throwing everything he has away as he views no point in anything. It's an intense reflection of crippling self-doubt, questioning any form of love, need, attraction and worth. This form portrayed in the chorus as a guy named Jack. I especially love the natural switching of the instrumental as verses build and choruses explode, with no room to breathe in the 2-minute and 30-second runtime. The sound of Alibis is then juxtaposed heavily in the third and final song tease for the album's rollout, this being Adderall. Adderall is a lot slower paced, almost feeling like Shame's take on Ants from Up There, with a heavy indie approach to both lyrics and sound. Charlie's singing is a lot softer than usual, offering the listener a soothing and pleasant listen. Via the same Bandcamp description aforementioned, Charlie describes Adderall as the observation of a person reliant on prescription drugs. These pills shift their mental and physical state and alter their behaviour. It's about how this affects them and those around them. It's a song of compassion, frustration, and the acceptance of change. I find Adderall to be a beautiful cut, with instrumentation that's quite new for Shame, yet perfectly executed. Orchid is a special cut on the record, as it's by far the furthest Shame has deviated from their post-punk sound. It'd perfectly fit on a project from Swan's early 90s goth rock era, and not just because of the sun reference, but also due to its colourful, vivid landscape and use of metaphorical lyricism that blooms like the flower the track is named after. The track delves into the theme of how aspects of people change through love, at first in a way that seems magical, but then seems to read off more negatively. It feels like we start in the honeymoon period of a relationship, but then explore the intrusive thoughts that tear down the image of the other lover. But your eyes, Snapchat, they seem to shake, they seem to break. It serves its track placement well, following Adderall nicely as a well-paced ballad, that then returns to Shame's punchier post-punk sound. The Fall of Paul is easily the most theatrical cut on the record, and right behind Six Pack as one of the more explosive. The 3-minute, 43-second trip Shame sends the listener through is mixed with a muddy, aggressive mix in the verses, and a heavily distorted switch-up in the chorus, bouncing the listener back and forth between two harsh and in-your-face sounds. The track talks about growing older and how lost and emotionally affected everyone can feel at points through the process. It's a foreboding song, and it offers a pretty memorable sound. Burning by Design is another ballad, again switching up the pace of the record. Food for Worms seems to bounce between tones and styles throughout the track listing, which I really appreciate as it keeps the project from sounding too samey overall. I find this track has Charlie's best vocals, as they sound they're in emotional pain, expressing a harrowing sentiment of toxicity towards a troubled relationship. The whole album has multiple references to relationships that break down and rebuild themselves over and over again. The track ends with a fast-paced outro that doesn't lose the melancholy feel of the song, but gives it a lively finish. The penultimate track is smoothly transitioned to after Burning by Design's outro, and the track in question is Different Person. One element I adore about this track is similar to Alibis, and that's the many ways the track switches itself up. It's the first track that breaks 5 minutes in length, and it breezes by in a flash, as the buzzing drums and repeating guitars drive the track forward at a steady, enjoyable pace. Charlie sings about how a person he once loved has changed to a point where his reliance of staying within the relationship is eating away at him, as he can clearly tell his love is fading because of it. It's a song that pries into a feeling many experience within relationships, a nagging voice pointing out what's falling apart and the doubt that settles in because of it. It serves as a great bridge leading into the final song, All the People. While the single offered my favourite soundscapes from the project, All the People is by far the best song on the entire track listing. It's one of the most heartfelt, personal and beautiful songs Shame has ever released, not only offering a lovely send-off of the record, but also hitting the listener with a message to take to heart. that revolves around this message, asking the listener to hold on to the friends and family they have in their life, as such a strong connection of love can't be found within otherwise. I love it particularly as it reminds me of just how important all the great friends I've made over the years are, and as well as that, as a closer, it wraps the album up with a lovely bow. Overall, Food for Worms is another great album by Shame, showcasing just how versatile the band can be with their post-punk sound. It has a wonderful album cover, 10 great tracks, and a 43-minute length that goes by like nothing, and I'll be giving Food for Worms a 9 out of 10. Favourite tracks are Fingers of Steel, Six Pack, Alibis, Adderall, and All the People. I am excited to see where Shame goes from here, and what else the post-punk scene will have in store for keen listeners going forward. This has been Super Wild Jellyfish, and may you strive to be your wild self.